Hello everyone and anyone unfortunate enough to have made their way to the bottom of the YouTube barrel. This is Friliqui, and in this video I'll be taking a look at a game that seemed unique at first glance, but the more I played it, the more its pedestrian qualities began to show. As a third-person open-world single-player RPG, this game should have been up my alley. Simply on the grounds of it being a single-player game, it already earned points in my book. But while I wanted it to be a great single-player game, well, at least while I wanted a great single-player game, it faltered in too many places for me to consider this a great single-player experience. And the price that I paid certainly didn't help. Alright, so if you didn't realize it from the title of this video, the game I'm talking about is Biomutant. And I'll start with the positives. The game world is visually well crafted, and exploring the map was one of the most entertaining aspects of the game. I often found myself heading to different parts of the map just to see what was there, and to see if I can find some upgrade piece for my armor or weapon. On that note, the crafting system was straightforward, and I found myself actually enjoying looking for those pieces to upgrade my armor or weapon. I mean, when I call it a system, saying it's a system is probably an overstatement, because the crafting and upgrading is implemented in the game in such a way that like I said, straightforward. It's pretty easy. It's really just a matter of finding a piece and then finding the resources necessary to attach that piece to whatever it is you wanted to upgrade. Curiously enough, I found most of the resources through resource totems. In fact, I guess you could buy some of the resources, but for the most part, it was just destroying these random piles of resource towers, and you'd get your plastic, you get your rubber, whatever particular resource you needed for your weapon. The resource towers, they're scattered throughout the map, and I actually thought it was a bit of a lazy way to scatter resources. I felt like more could have been done with that, or at least I don't know, just hide the rubber, or not hide the rubber, but have mines where you could go collect rubber or have collect plastic from, I don't know, abandoned factories. The idea of just piles of resources being pulled up, I know there was something to the fact that they were piled up like that, but it really didn't work for me. However, as someone who isn't a fan of needlessly complex crafting systems or needlessly elaborate resource gathering methods, where you have to go through multiple burdensome hurdles just to increase your stats on your equipment by, I don't know, something like +1 that barely makes a difference whether you do it or not, the straightforward implementation of the crafting and upgrading in the game was welcomed. That's a weird way to put it. For the most part, I liked it. Another positive, and one that the game seems to be banking on as one of its main appeals, is the uniqueness of its design theme. While this obviously isn't the first game to revolve around anthropomorphic animals and creatures, the way the game straddles between being lighthearted and, at least on a superficial level, critical, is interesting to see unfold. I mean, the idea of a corporation ruining the world for human habitation is well-treaded ground, but what about the mutated creatures and animals that arise from the devastation? Well, they'd likely be very sickly, or at the very least not masters of the martial arts, but this game is, of course, well, let's put it, if you're going into this game expecting something along the lines of Stalker or Metro, with a bunch of little creatures running around, a bunch of furry little creatures running around, well, I mean, just look at the video, it's not happening here, that's not what you're getting. Anyway, now it's time for the listing of grievances. My greatest complaint, the one thing that consistently remained a low point throughout the game, was the story. It was just so bland. The delivery was commonplace, the development was uninteresting, and this is one of the few games where the story was simply irrelevant to my desire to continue playing the game. It wasn't bad enough for me to view it as a detriment to enjoying the game, but it also was so run-of-the-mill that it simply remained an afterthought as I was playing. There was something about seeking revenge or not against a big furry that was called Lupa Lupin, who killed the mother of the character, but that did little for the story. At least it did little for me. At times the game felt as if it was delivering separate, very loosely connected storylines. There was the tribe war, the thing with Lupa Lupin, and stopping the big world-eating monsters, and a whole bunch of other little minor sidelines. The game tries to tie these together, but they, by and large, unfold parallel to one another, as opposed to affecting and affecting or enhancing each other. It would have been interesting to see the tribe war unfold or change depending on which world eater was stopped first, or having one of the tribes seek your help because the world eater happened to attack them first, or Lupa Lupin was on the move and was targeting them. But as it stands, the world eaters are doing their thing on some corner of the map. The tribe war is occurring isolated from that, and Lupa Lupin is apparently just randomly pops up on occasion, otherwise is living out in a mountain or something. I don't know. It's not even worth mentioning. That's to say, the story could have been more interesting with better character and better character development. But the characters in the game are simply forgettable, and the character development, while there were you can clearly tell that they were trying to make it a meaningful part of the game, simply remained uninteresting. Everyone that I met in the game, I quickly forgot. I mean, there was a whole cast of quirky characters, the most memorable of which are those that actually try to assist you in defeating the world eaters. But for the most part, they're simply there to deliver missions, to tell you what to do so that you can defeat the world eaters. The majority of the missions themselves do get a little repetitive. While I don't remember having to do any mission that asks me to kill 5 of whatever animal and bring back their fur, there were missions that simply boiled down to do this X amount of times and then return back. For example, there was a mission where I had to rescue some random captives from bandits. I think they were bandits, and it was fine for the first maybe 3-4 times that I had to go through it, but after that it was just a chore. So, like a lot of other RPGs, the side missions were unimaginative and again repetitive. Another issue I took with the game is how stale the world is. The towns and forts were like plastic decorations. Interacting with other anthropomorphic creatures, at least those that weren't immediately hostile to me, was disappointing. That is, that they didn't contribute much of anything to developing the unique quality of the world, the character of the world. It just felt sort of like plastic fruit. A lot of it was simply there for decoration, or all of it. Don't eat plastic fruit. Alright, so now that my grievances and dislikes have been aired, I'll go ahead and mention aspects of the game that were fine, but not really worth promoting as positives. The first is the combat. The game offers a variety of different weapons and powers to use in combat, and while mixing up weapons and powers was fun for a bit, I quickly found myself simply using the automatic rifle for most of the game. While I tried the psychic powers and biomutations alongside the range of guns and swords, nothing really beat the simplicity of just blasting enemies with rounds of bullets. But yeah, that also loses some of its luster after a while. Another aspect of the game that is largely a wash is the morality system. Again, system might be a bit of an overstatement, but there does at least seem to be some sort of logic running through what makes a good and bad choice. There are I wrote down 3 powers that can only be accessed if you have enough dark or light points, but as I quickly found the automatic rifle to be the best solution, I used the light and dark powers out of little more than a curiosity of seeing those powers in action. Of course, the story does change if you decide to take the light or dark route, but this ultimately is one of those games where very little actually made me want to take the dark route. I'm just not a big fan of killing little animals. As a general rule, I usually take the light or good route in an RPG, and I only play the dark route if the game manages to entice me to play it. Some RPGs do a really good job of making me want to take the dark route. This game is not among them. The only thing I found interesting enough to mention about my dark playthrough was that I got to hear the dark side of my conscience tell off the light side, and that was actually kind of rewarding. As a whole, the way the morality was used in this game was, like other things, straightforward. Admittedly, it seems that it is exactly what the developers were going for. That is a morality system that is used in the same fashion as a classic fable to convey some sort of moral lesson or just some lesson in general. And in that respect, it works. Well, at least it is consistent with the overall fable-like quality of the game. Again, not something that stands as a positive or a negative, just something worth mentioning because it seems that the game really wanted to do something meaningful with the dark and light choices, but like other parts of the game, it just fell flat. What I mean is that it really was just going through the paces, going through the process of taking one path or the other. There was nothing meaningful or compelling about it. To put it succinctly, the game said I did good, but I didn't feel good. Anywho, I'll go ahead and wrap it up with my patent pending rating system. Again, system might be a little strong of a word. Perhaps entirely arbitrary numerical rating is a better term. Maybe, but as a bona fideli intellectual, I think I like the sophistication of the term rating system. So I'll go ahead and stick with that. Okay, so running through my completely legitimate and existent 12-point grading rubric, I'm going to give Biomutant a 3. No, a 3.5 out of 5. The game is technically sound. I think I only encountered a single glitch in the game. I mean, I wasn't looking for anything like that, but it is a positive when you can just play a game without the headache of bugs, glitches, or other technical difficulties of the kind that you have to kind of maneuver your way around or go online and try and find how other people maneuvered their way around it and try to replicate it. I also enjoyed the design and theme of the game alongside the weaponry and combat. However, while I enjoyed them, the enjoyment had a limited longevity, and after a while, that began to turn stale. Ultimately, the game started strong. It had my interest for a few hours, but I found it difficult to remain interested. I enjoyed exploring the map, but after a while I simply stopped and just carried out the missions. There wasn't enough reason to keep exploring the map. I kept asking myself why. What exactly would I gain? An upgrade piece? In a few hours I had decent enough armor set and weapon to blow through enemies on the hardest difficulty there is in the game. So why even bother? I suppose exploring the area just to see it, but other than a few remote locations that I thought might have been interesting, the sightseeing aspect of the game lost its novelty, and that really does sum up my impression of the game. There just wasn't enough there to hold my interest for very long. It was good for a playthrough, but the second one really just felt like I was going through it solely for the purpose of making this video. And I hate to say it, but I'll probably just uninstall it, and I might return back to it if they release some sort of major expansion, or maybe just an additional expansion with an additional story to it. Like I really don't even care what happens with the ARC thing, but I don't know. I might return back to it just to see what they tried and what they added to the game, how they build on it. But as it stands, it's just an okay game. It's fun. I guess you can try it out, but the game sits at $60 on most sites, and I really do feel dirty. Okay, dirty is probably not the right word for that, but I do feel underwhelmed. There you go, underwhelmed I do feel underwhelmed by the game, especially for what I pay for it. Because I bought it when it was, I think I bought it on sale when it was about $51 on, I forgot which site it was, but it was like $51. And at that price, it just felt underwhelming. The whole experience was just, man, I paid for probably, I don't know, like 10 hours of novelty, and that's about it. All right, well, thanks for watching and or listening. And till next time.